Oh my God, here we are, season 2019, just about to start already. It doesn't seem like it's been that long of a summer, but then again, when you sit there and look at the cricket and the tennis, it has actually dragged a bit. So very, very happy to be bringing you the first episode of 2019 CrowCast Tuesday Night Live, and joining me this evening is Nikki Nui. How you going, Nikki?
I'm going very well. Footy's back. Yes.
Footy is almost back. Not long to go. And we have Donkey as well. How you going, Donk?
Not too bad, Fiend. G'day, Nikki. How you doing?
I'm sick of cricket. No, don't really care about tennis.
Yeah, it's a bit like that.
Yeah, no, I haven't been able to get into the tennis at all. And the cricket's been dead set boring. So, I've been pretty occupied over the summer anyway. But I haven't taken any. I don't think I've watched any of the Test match at all. Have you guys watched much of the Tests?
When I've gone up to see the parents.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I think I kind of saw it. The parents have had it on and gone, oh, is that where we're at? Okay.
Yeah, I got to see a little bit of Perth, I reckon. I saw a bit of Perth, and but the Channel 7 commentary made me want to tear my hair out. So I don't like change very much, and I could not do the rest of it. And the one day is hidden behind Foxtel, and I'm kind of refusing to go there.
Yeah, I don't mind Foxtel now with
I have
Kayo.
Foxtel, but
Kayo's
yeah, I've got
been
Foxtel,
good.
but I haven't been interesting to watch.
Any of you guys got Kayo? You hooked into that yet?
Nah, but I'll probably go live on that for the. I'll go live on that for the footy season, I reckon, because that'll have value for me there. But I wasn't going to pay for the 3 months and leading up to it.
I'll tell you what, if you're into NBA, it's fantastic.
Yeah, again, I'm NBA, but I'm a diehard Lakers man, and it hasn't been worth watching since Christmas. So I'm having a sporting sook at the moment.
A sporting sook. Well, that's fair enough.
See, they've got supercars, so I'm kind of interested in that. I've got Foxtel, but I'll have to invest in probably an Apple TV or something like that.
Chromecast are easy.
No, but then I like to use my laptop whilst I'm watching that. And that doesn't work.
You can just stream it from your phone. Anyway, I'm not going to debate it. Whatever. Look, we've got to say hello to people that have joined us for our first episode. Adam on Facebook and he's got us covered everywhere, on Spreaker as well. G'day, Adam. Nice to see you again. Hope the summer has been good down at the farm. We've obviously got Sid Crow, we've got J-Mac, we've got Matthew Hoare, we've got Nikki, what are you doing on the chat? You're supposed to be concentrating on what you're doing.
Hey, I can multitask.
Look, it's great to see everyone back for another season and joining us. It's going to be a pretty cruisy show. Tonight we're all sort of easing back into it. I haven't done any pre-season training whatsoever. I don't know about you guys. So it's going to be a little bit slow. But how about we just hook in to see what's going on over at the Crows with some news. Oh, that didn't work. What happened to that?
Which button to press now?
Where'd my freaking news go? Oh, whatever. I hate to say I told you so.
Go on, sing it.
And we're back. All right. What do we got, Nick? Do you want to start off with some AFLW?
We could do that. Well,
how about we start off with we'll start off with the blokes first, and then we'll hook into the girls.
Well, I was going to start off with we've got the captain's name for both teams, and the men are now following in the footsteps of the women, which is the right way because the women have actually won a premiership recently. In that we have co-captains. It was very interesting listening to with Tex and Stoney. It was very interesting listening to the press conference because the impression I got from the way Tex was talking was that it was something that might have been on Pikey's mind, but Tex was also possibly thinking going down that track, was the impression I got from some of the things he said. What did either of you two watch the press conference?
Yeah, I saw it. I agree with that, Nick. I think the big Texan.
We must have a delay here.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, it was just our awkward first start of season dancing without talking. But I agree with you, Nick. I reckon he looked like he wanted to do it. Not that he was tired of the job or anything like that, but I think he also. It looks to me that everyone on that stage, appreciated what Rory brings to the club, and feels that he deserved that opportunity. And that didn't necessarily mean Tex didn't. So I don't always agree with the double captaincy or their sort of compromise solutions on leadership positions. But I think this might be a case where we got it right.
I mean, we know Sliney had to work on some stuff, and by the sounds of it, he has.
Yeah, signing a contract.
What do you reckon he needed to work on?
He's good. Well, I know he needed more voice on the track, and to be a bit more vocal about giving the feedback, etc. And that has happened. But it was also, he's still outside of the club. He tends to keep himself to himself. He doesn't have often the young boys coming to stay with him, whereas Tex often does. So it was that side of the leadership he's had to work on. And by the sounds of it, he's being a bit more proactive regarding not just what happens in the club, but also keeping tabs on the boys outside and just checking up on them and giving them encouragement when they need to, or helping steer them in the right direction. Yeah,
okay. My impression was that Tex probably warmed to the idea. Judging by the comments that I've read and the bits that he said, etc., I don't think it was necessarily something that he originally thought of, but I think having it put in front of him by Don, I don't think in the end it was a very difficult decision for Tex to make. I think he could see the wisdom of it fairly quickly. And look, I think I'm a bit with you, Donk. I'm not necessarily a fan of the co-captains, but I think in this circumstance, with two, it's a bit like Judd and Cousins. One is the spiritual leader, one is the champion, I guess you'd say, and I think they complement each other really well.
And they're great mates. That just really helps, I think, as well, is that they are such good mates. They've been through a lot together, and I think that will actually help them, because some of the other times when players get named as co-captains, you're like, well, how will that actually gel? How will that work? Whereas I think we kind of know how it's going to work for these two. They've got a business together. They were at the club at the same time. And coming all the way through. So I think it's actually a really smart decision.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see the reactions from some of the Crows stalwarts, and wasn't it just very predictable that the bloke that was most against it was Chris bloody McDermott? Club can't do anything right.
Has he ever got a call right?
Well, not only has he never got a call right, but I don't think he's ever supported anything the club's ever done. It's the most unusual attitude by an ex-Crows champion. I know he probably wants to be impartial and all the rest of it, but I think it's a bit more than that. I think there's a little bit of bitterness involved in that. And one bloke that you don't hear being involved in the club much post-career is Chris McDermott. And given that the club's worked fairly hard to get some of those other blokes back into the fold, I don't know. Chris has got a bit of a stink on with the club, I reckon.
Yeah, I agree with you. Or in Macca's absence, I should say, I couldn't agree more. Everything I've read from him for the last 10 years is you could. Everything I read from him for the last 10 years has been complete utter dross delivered at the club, and some serious mental gymnastics going on to create the arguments he's trying to do, which at most stages I would say would be beyond bone, because he sounds about as thick as two short planks.
The blokes in the chat saying controversy gets clicks, so that's all well and good, but people actually got to read your stuff before, I mean, I don't. Do many people actually click on McDermott's stuff? The only reason I saw what he said was because it was in some other article.
No, he still holds the grudge for how he was sacked.
Yeah.
And delisted by the club. And seriously, dude, get over yourself. But he also proved that he actually, for somebody who, wasn't the most talented player, he still got the most out of himself. And as I said, he's the type of guy you'd want in the trenches. You know that. And he was great as our first captain. But he actually doesn't really know anything about football, because you look at what he did at North Adelaide as a coach, and my God, he was shithouse.
Well, he was very much a see-ball, get-ball kind of guy, wasn't he? And it was as tough as nails. No one could question his courage. And he led that way. He led probably not dissimilar to the way Rory Sloane plays, to be perfectly honest. But you're right, Nick. His post-playing career wasn't very stellar. His journalist career isn't very stellar. His coaching career certainly wasn't. And... there's other blokes of that era that got dumped that have gotten over it. Tony Modra is back at the club, and you could argue that Tony was probably treated worse than anyone else at the Crows. So, yeah, it's disappointing, but I guess it's just a product of that era, perhaps, where there was some great SANFL champions at the twilight of their careers that probably only had 2 seasons to give, and Malcolm made some hard calls, and I guess it's not the way that they would have left the game had they finished their careers as SANFL champions. You know what I mean? So maybe a bit of pill to swallow in that respect.
Oh, well, he could have gone out a champion if he didn't let us get run over in the third quarter against Essendon in '93. Up to him. Hard nut bones.
As DSG has pointed out, though, that Chris, he is there for the father-son. So his son is part of the academy.
Oh, he's a good bloke, mate. I really hope his kid plays well.
I've always liked McDermott, actually.
Champion of the club. Sad what happened to him.
Piss poor by the Crows, really.
I mean, I can agree with the whole thing of, he seems to try for the controversy or whatever, but I just look at his coaching career and it just proves to me he actually really is not somebody you should look to for valid football nous.
No. Anyway, let's move.
So says us on a podcast.
Yeah, that's right. But at least we don't pretend. We know we're full of shit. All right. Injury news over the off-season. I'm not going to say anything because last season I jinxed the whole freaking lot. So someone else talk about injury news, please.
Go on, Donk. Take one for the team.
I don't know. I don't want to be responsible for this, but it looked clearly we had some really good reports before the end of the year that our blokes had come back pretty fit and booming along, which I thought was pretty outstanding. I think there are a few extra weeks off, and the surgeries, at the end of last year or the end of the season last year, are actually going to allow us to springboard into this season, which will be nice after the sort of dead cat bounce that we started off with at the start of the year. Found a bit of motor and then died by the middle of the year. So hopefully we've got some people with some run in their legs. There's a young fellow we haven't seen for all of last year, and he's been quite injured. That seemed to be going okay, but then sort of had a week off. So I'm not going to mention him by name just because.
But he's back.
But I'm scared of. Well, but I don't want to say that it's all good because I think it is all good because that's what Phoenix did last year, and we never saw him again.
I'm not going near it.
So
we're just not going to say any names.
No.
Our injury list should be better because McGovern's off, or McNuggets, so I like to call him now. So that's at least 15 weeks worth of hamstrings that we don't have to worry about this year.
Well, he's already done a bloody shoulder at Carlton, so he's already out.
Yeah, didn't he break something?
He did a collarbone or something.
No, he's back. He did a vertebrae.
Did he?
Yeah.
He's a bloody gymnast then.
What a dickhead.
Yeah. I reckon it was from carrying around the spare tyre, but apparently went up from that big mark and came down and and hurt his back.
Breaking bones at Carlton.
Yeah, well, they're going all right. I think we should do a segment this year on the like a version of the Doomsday Clock, but sort of what pick does Adelaide get clock? We're We pick 1, pick 2, and go around the clock back like that.
Yeah,
This may make us actually barrack for Port.
Well,
look, I wouldn't go that far.
I don't know about that, Nick. Come on.
Well, no. We may want them to win a game.
Yeah, we just pretend footy's not happening this week. In fact, I'm pretty sure that the bye in round 13's got a good chance of knocking Carlton off this year.
I reckon you're probably right. You're probably right. Now, we might actually run that doomsday counter on the website, Donkey. That is an excellent idea. I'll see what I can do there.
Yep, like that. Well done.
I've got 3 left for the season, so watch out.
Space them out.
Yeah. Are there any... I don't think there's actually any major injuries at the moment, is there? Talia had some surgery, didn't he?
Yeah, Talia did. McKay's still out, but I think is he
still at the club
soon? Yes, he is.
Easy.
He's our Mr. Fix-It.
Righto.
Hartigan.
Yeah, and Hartigan. And Dad said to me the other day, he goes, "Who's our tall forwards? Our tall backman." And it was like, Keith. And that's why we also got in Jordan Butts, although he's very young. But I was just looking at that and thinking, we've trialled Fogg, so we know we can throw him down there if we need. So, and Matthew Hall says Knight had something. Knight always has something.
Yeah, big season for Knighter, so I hope he can get on the park and give it a good shake, because we got some lads in now that might overtake him if he's not careful. And he's right too. Tom Didé had something as well. What was going on with Tom?
He had quad tightness, had a scan, was back training the next day, I think. So not nothing to see here, as they say in the classics.
Jeez, you just got very, very intimate then, Donkey. Did you just fall over? Did you swallow the microphone or something?
Hi, that's right. Welcome back to tonight's episode of the podcast.
Fucking Donkey.
It's really great to be with you. I've been off the piss for 3 weeks and I'm going a little bit strange.
Especially up where you are.
Yeah, how does that work?
I don't want to keep failing liver function tests, so we've gone with a few weeks off. I'm going to do Feb fast as well, which will be interesting for the whole world.
Well, we're not going to like you by about March. You're going to be an angry man.
Oh, thanks. So you like me now? That's lovely.
Well, Jesus.
Yeah, I won't tell you, Donkey, that my mother was really happy that my dad was going in for a liver function test, and it came back as normal.
Oh,
and so
wow.
he came out going, "I can drink twice as much." He's a Barossa boy. He can put it away.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, come on. Shut up with your bloody.
It's our first one back. Let us have a chat.
Give a shit about your bloody liver, for Christ's sakes.
Oh.
It's actually been fairly quiet.
Donkey on the bloody injury list with a liver.
I just saw it. He actually up there, the top end, that you can try to not drink, but doesn't alcohol just float in the air everywhere?
Yeah, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's pretty much part of the it's part of how you do it, because it's very hot and you got to replace your fluids. So we are quite serious about our hydration up here, and we make sure that we're always in top health.
Now I'm just channeling my inner Pete and straightening the ship up. What other bloody injury news have we got? I think that's about it. I think that's
that's kind of about. Oh, Gallucci had a little bit with his.
Yeah, but he's back on as well, isn't he?
I think he's back training. Yeah.
I think he's back on.
And
I think Tex is on full training, isn't he?
Yeah, Tex is. He who shall not be named. He was at 80%.
Yeah,
I think for a while, until he had a week off, but that is still pretty good.
Yeah, and Sloaney's foot.
I
think it was an 80%. Yeah, well, I think it was 80% to make sure he didn't blow out. So it wasn't even necessarily that he couldn't have done more. It's just that they didn't want him to. So, happy with that.
Well, considering he's been on 20% for the last 2 years.
McPherson and his dodgy groin.
Look, I've forgotten about him, to be honest, and I don't mean to be horrible to the lad, but, geez, is he ever going to get on the park?
Well, he had osteitis pubis, and that takes a while to sort out.
Yeah. And I think with Seeds last year, we proved that we could actually get the OP done right when the right strength training program, which we didn't get too many success stories last year with recovering from injury, but I think Seeds was definitely one of them.
So are we seeing possibly an influence from Steve Saunders being at the club already?
Well, I reckon our energy list right now compared to where we were last year would be a fair indication of that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
I'd say so.
I agree. Now, Vardy Magic in the chat says he wants updates on Carlton injuries. Of course, Alex Fasolo decided to do something weird.
He had a bit of a wrestle with a mate.
We don't even...
Play wrestling with his mate.
A bit
on
weird.
Australia Day.
Oh.
Sounds lovely.
I mean, we shouldn't hang it too much on Alex because he's had a few problems, but we will hang it on Carlton for managing their players so bloody poorly.
Yeah.
Obviously, McGov, Cruiser,
Doherty's knee, obviously.
Doherty again.
Yeah, that's going to be
pretty sad.
Yeah.
What else have we
Killed
got?
my super coach's defence.
Yeah. McGovern, obviously.
Paul C in the chat. Gov broke his bank account.
And then, as DSG and Hori say, the co-captain in waiting down at the little brother, Ollie Wines, he did something.
Yeah, he did his shoulder water skiing.
Water skiing.
Yeah.
Professional footballer water skiing in pre-season.
Well, I don't know they actually... Did they say water skiing specifically? I just read skiing.
No, so, I think it's water skiing. Didn't
Treadray
Treadray do something water skiing when he was playing?
He skis during the season.
Yeah, but that's not something that... I don't... If you're on a...
Downhill.
If you're on a...
Downhill.
Very good. Well, if he I hope he skis straighter than his bloody kicks. But didn't Treaders do something water skiing when he was playing a few years ago? I reckon.
Yeah, and so did Riley Knight.
Oh well, we won't talk about it anymore. All right. What else? Anyone else of any note that's been injured?
Didn't Harley Bennell do another calf, or was that? Have I just made that up and confused it with him getting drunk at a pub somewhere?
Well, I was going to say, did he do that running from the cops, or?
Yeah, I think one of those things have happened recently. It was either the pub thing or a calf thing. I just can't remember which one.
Yeah.
That's not good for the poor guy.
No. Look, anyway, that's about it for injury news. Suffice to say, touch wood and everything else, we're not travelling too badly. Time will tell. We've got to obviously get through JLT, and obviously the club only releases what they want to release as well. So hard to know for sure. But the vision that I've seen from the pre-season training and reports etc. sound positive. And as you mentioned, Nick, hopefully Saunders has been able to implement some good soft tissue management down there and get rid of these bloody hamstrings for 2019 because we don't need a repeat of that. Okay.
Well, I think maybe I heard that the club gave Burton extended holiday into the start of January just to make sure he was refreshed and recharged. So maybe that's what marries up. That was all bullshit, by the way.
We'll leave the Burton bashing for Macca next week. And g'day to Macca, he's a bit under the weather. He'll be back with us. He what?
Nothing.
We don't need details, for God's sake. All right, Nikki.
Stop it, donkey.
Let's talk about AFLW, shall we?
Yes.
There's no intro music. Oh, yeah, actually, I can give you some intro music. One moment.
Oh, well.
I can't let that play too long or else YouTube does me for copyright.
Bastards. I actually went along to the open training session a couple of weeks ago. They had, just to try and see how we were, if we're setting up any differently, etc., things like this. One of the things I noticed was there was a lot of laughter, but they were working hard, and it was one of those stinking hot. I think it was 36 degrees when I'm sitting in the shade at Norwood.
That seems to be a bit of a theme down the club this year. We've had, talk of Pikey actually cracking a smile and being pretty relaxed, and now you're saying that the girls were pretty relaxed. Do you reckon that's a bit of a a bit of a concerted effort to lighten up a bit?
Yeah, and that's what I kind of noticed. I mean, I could see they were still having fun last time, but it just seemed to be a little bit more under Clarkey. And the one thing I'll say is they had lots of different things going on around the ground, but I kind of kept my eye on the midfield because Clarkey was going through the motion with in terms of the ruck setups and the midfielders. And whilst the other ones were swapping around being forwards or backs or, doing stuff inside, he kept all the midfielders in there and was doing some stuff with them. And he gets quite a bit of a bum rap regarding his what's perceived to be poor coaching.
Is that workplace harassment? You can't just diss out bum raps, can you, Dom?
I mean, he gets that from the big footy crowd and from other people who talk about his coaching of the men's team.
Why are you going to leave me hanging, Donkey?
I actually zoned out for a second.
My one and only joke for the year, and you bloody missed it.
Yeah, I think I missed last year's too. You might have to work and deliver it.
Pay attention, you bastard.
For me, it was really interesting to watch the way he was actually teaching the different areas. He was mostly getting, unfortunately, the Beast, who's out for the full season because she did her knee. But I was really looking forward to them watching the trial game because what I saw had me quite impressed. And then the trial game, I was also very impressed as well. It was very reminiscent of a men's AFL team. The one thing I noticed from the training was he was very much pulling them up regarding their positioning and zoning and getting in those right positions. I mean, they did it as well the last two seasons, but it was a lot more emphasis on it. And you could see, because we've now got the 5-6-5 formation that has to happen, I don't think there's going to be too much of adjustment for the Crows team regarding that because we often did set up that way at the start of bounces, etc. Anyhow, we were one of the few teams who would put wings and force other teams to play our way. So I think we've got a little advantage there.
Do you think it's a good point that you make about Clark, Nikki, because we would be the only club that has someone who's involved in the men's program coaching the women? So I can't think of any other club that has that arrangement.
Was Starcevich? I thought he was doing some stuff with the Brisbane Lions as well.
Yeah, but I reckon
with the men's team.
I reckon he's got a dual role.
The women's system.
Yeah, Clark with the dual role. I mean, Matty Clark. Let's be real. He's a good AFL, an excellent AFL player. Been in the system very long, so I don't know. I reckon we might benefit from that. And like you were saying, Nick, the new girls that played in that trial game against Freo, they were pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean that ridiculous goal that Chloe Shear kicked.
Yeah.
Where she looked at the ball, she looked at the goals, and she deliberately put that ball on the point.
Yeah, she actually looks quite natural.
She is. I've only ever seen her, I think, a couple of times. I saw little bits of her playing in the Women's League here. But I heard so much about her from so many other players. They were just like, no, this girl is just amazing. One of the funny things from training is a couple of the injured players were hanging around towards the end. Of course, they've got the big green bin. They're trying to throw the ball and get it into the bin, trying to kick it, everything. Of course, they're all missing and everything else. And somebody kind of tries to do a little bit of a trick kind of one that doesn't quite work. One of the other players walking past just goes, Chloe would have got that. And I didn't quite twig at the time, but it was whilst I was watching and seeing what she did going, they already know that this girl has insane level of skill. So if she can bring consistency, and I think if you have her swapping with her and Erin between a forward and midfield, that's not too bad.
So we're talking Rookie of the Year here?
Oh, It'll be interesting to see how some of the others go. They do like their Victorian ones, as always, and there's a few more of them. And I think they'd really like to spruce up, particularly either North or Geelong. Somebody from there.
Yeah,
but
try to pump that up.
I think she's a very good chance. A very good chance.
They wanted to give the first MVP to Daisy Pinter, but Daisy
Pearce.
Pearce, yeah, and Erin just blew him out of the park. So there's scope for being heaps better here.
Yeah, I really like the look of Jess Foley. I think just watching that trial game, there were a lot of missmarks and everything else, but you would know, Donkey, that's a lot to do with the weather, the conditions that were up there. You can see at the start of the quarters, the handling was very good for about a minute or two, and then the ball got wet. Yeah. The one thing I really loved was the handball, the run, the overlap, and it was very proactive handball. It was, if it didn't quite work, didn't mind. They were trying to create something there.
Yeah, and the thing that I noticed, I didn't get to see the last game, but at the previous game that I was at, which I think was the Freo Adelaide actual round 4 or whatever it was match last year, the humidity and the dew point subtract the moisture in the ball, so when they go to kick it, it's just falling short by 15-30% every time, and that makes it a bit hard for that chain of movement.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do with this first team to cover the loss of Rhiannon Metcalf. I think they really like the idea of playing Jess Foley at the centre-half back role and using Rhiannon and Jasmine Hewitt as those who swap. I think what this is going to do is what we had last year when Rhiannon also missed a couple of games, is that you will possibly have Sarah Allen taking the backline ruck taps, and then we could actually play Hatchard in the ruck, and we did it as well with Perkins, who then becomes an extra midfielder. Then they just play midfield forward and stay for that area. So it's going to be interesting to see that first selection as to how we structure up, knowing we don't have our number one ruck, and haven't heard anything yet about Jasmine Hewitt's ankle as to whether she's going to be available.
Yeah, look, I think they're going to have to... I felt like for the first couple of years of the competition, we played a very similar way, and I think to some degree we were found out a bit last year. They'd sat on Perkins and shut down our playmakers. They couldn't shut down all of them, of course, but I felt like we were a bit one-dimensional. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do change it up a bit, Nikki, and become a bit more versatile in the way that they play and the positions that they put the girls in.
Yeah, we really liked, obviously, the move of Ange Foley into the midfield. We put her there to actually be a tagger, but then she also went and got her own ball, and she played entirely in the midfield the other weekend in the trial game. So I think that's where we had her. We had Hatchard in the midfield. She's a really nice big body, beautiful kick on her, makes the right decisions. I actually really like Hatchard. I think she's taken a step up from what she showed last year and also in the AFLW. So we've got those kind of players who can do that job. But then we've also got Renee Forth from GWS, and she's a really handy midfielder as well. So we've introduced that as new blood, as well as with Ebony. You can push Randall through there. You can have Erin in for moments and then out again, because she is a bit older, but she's also so damaging up forward.
Yeah.
The one thing I did notice in the truck, perfectly, two healthy legs.
Yeah. Okay.
Not a problem at all. The one thing I did notice is that in that trial game that she was just being hung on to the whole time. So there were a couple of times she got paid, that and a few other times not. Ebony Marinoff was much better at actually showing the umpire I'm being held on to. And I think that's not in Erin's nature so much.
No, but it's one of those things, isn't it, Nick? Because the umpiring isn't of the same standard as the men's, obviously.
No.
I think the girls have got to be prepared to actually... Yeah, they've got to be prepared to actually not play for frees, but certainly make it known to the umpire when something's there, because I've felt the whole time that we've been a bit of a victim of that sort of tactic, the holding and all that sort of stuff. And we tend not to do it ourselves, and that's not rose-coloured glasses. That's just what I've observed.
Yeah, so what is it? Vardy Magic's asked, have they introduced a shitload of new rules? They've fixed one up, which I'm quite pleased about. So we've still got that out-of-bounds rule, but they've taken it out of the forward 50. It's only between the arcs, that the last touch rule. There's that one. I'm not sure about some of the other ones. I know they kind of put some in, but that's when everything else was happening. I was like, no, I just need a bit of a break. And I can't pull anything up quickly at the moment. But it's definitely, there's the 5-6-5 formation, which must be at every centre bounces.
Yeah.
And at the start of each quarter. There's the bit about the out of bounds rule, similar to what we have in the SNFL men's.
Yeah.
Which is only in the midfield between those arches. They've also got the same, that's also being trialled with the men. They can bring the kick out 15 metres.
Yep.
So it's not from the edge of the square, it's actually further out. All that meant on the weekend I saw from our trial game was that everybody just sets the wall up a little bit further back, and then it keeps getting shunted straight back in again. So that didn't really affect it too much. But it'll be interesting to see how that goes over this first weekend.
I don't think we would have seen all the tactics, Nick, because I can see that extra 5 metres being a real advantage, together with the play-on rule, the fact that you don't have to kick it to yourself and all that sort of crap. I can see a lot of fast breaking and coast-to-coast stuff going on in both men's and women's.
I mean, our game had quite a bit of high scoring, which is really good to see.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what they've wanted to do. People kind of can't get their head around that it's actually only a 20-minute quarter. That means it's going to be less scores. They just kind of think of it, they're still playing a game of football. I want to see 100 points.
Yeah, that
is going to be a rarity. And the AFL has once again completely dropped the ball on promoting this correctly. And as I said to you guys when we did a little pre-chat before coming on here, but finding out that in that first season of the AFL, it was actually somebody with a proper marketing degree who offered their services for free to the AFL, who ran it all.
Yeah.
And the AFL then just dropped the ball, unless they don't want to put the money into it, which we can see with how much they're trying to push the AFLX, which really, who gives a shit, honestly, about the AFLX?
And we'll get to the AFLX and
it's only been played at Marvel.
Fantastic! I've just been hanging.
Well, it's our feature presentation, the AFLX. We just thought we'd get through the minors first with the men's comp and the AFLW. But just rounding that off, Nick, we've got the Bulldogs first up at Norwood on Saturday night. Yep, 8 o'clock at Norwood. Should be a great game, and would be great to get off to a good start.
Yeah, we tend to they tend to get a little bit of a head, and then we run over them, and they lose often by a close margin or something, and they really hate that, and it's so delightful.
Yeah.
So
that's a tradition against the Bulldogs, isn't
it? Yeah. I just hope we continue that. I do remember the last time when that happened, like last season's game, and I was sort of walking out and, of course, being abused by Bulldogs supporters that were only good because of one player. It was like, too bad. And there's this girl, she's standing there, and she had a pin badge on it, and it said, "Doggies do it best in September." And I'm like, well, A, it's not September, and not against us.
Yeah, well, not traditionally.
Once in 60 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let them have their moment. All right, well, look, everyone should get down to that game. It's going to be good weather on Saturday, and they're always good fun down at Norwood Oval. It's nice and intimate there at the ground, and I think it's a really good sized ground for women's football, not being degrading.
Yeah,
but I think
it's horrible to watch sometimes as a spectator, and there's one of the stands missing now.
Yeah, well,
that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that is right too. You're right. I think in general the grounds are far more appropriate this season. So hopefully we see some higher scoring games, and it'll be very interesting to see how those rule changes go. Just flicking back to the men's for a sec, what do you think of the rule changes for 2019 in general?
I think there's. I worry that they play around with the rules too much, and the umpires don't know how to interpret the ones they've got in front of them as a general feeling with the rules. But I think that I think we're going to take advantage of them, though. I actually think they're going to be good for us. I think that Brody Smith and probably Seeds sprinting out of the square and dropping it as long as they can will set us some really quick scoring transition chains, which I think is going to be a good thing. And I also think that forcing teams into a proper setup are going to mean that some of the rumble ball that Tigers are going to play is going to be disrupted a bit, and probably the way Sydney are going to play is going to be disrupted a bit. And
I don't actually see that having much of an impact, to be honest. The 666.
No, because it's just at the very start.
Yeah, but I'm talking about breaks out of the square. So if we break out of the square and just bomb it up really high, and you've got Tex, Fogg, and JJ all having a chance to stand under it, I think that is a good. I think we can take advantage of that with the quality we've got down there.
Don't forget that we benefited a lot from off the back of the square stuff as well, though. So it does limit us as well.
It'll come down. Look, I think Maxi Gawn and Brodie Grundy are going to be benefited a little bit. So I think we'll need to see Sauce wind back the clock and then add some sauce and add some more sauce to it, and maybe we see Riley O'Brien play a bit more of a role this year. But I'm, if we get the bloke that we're not naming, Rory Sloane, Gibbs, and Bob back in the centre square for most of our starting bouncers, then I think we're going to be pretty competitive, and we should have first use of the ball more often than not. So I think we'll take advantage of them. But more confusing things for these numpties to wrap their heads around is going to be a problem, and I think we're going to get very angry and frustrated by the way that the hands in the back is going to be interpreted, because we're so used to seeing no touching now. We'll watch Jack Rewalt basically deck someone in the middle of his shoulder blades and not get called for it at some point this year.
I'm one of the few people who really liked the hands in the back rule, because my thinking is that there's too many grey areas in Aussie rules. And we don't like ticky touch stuff, but by the same token, you've got to make the game as easy to umpire as possible. And I thought the hands in the back rule allowed the umpires to be definitive in their decision making, and the players adapted within a few weeks. You just knew you couldn't put hand in the back. Now we're back to this interpretation situation, and we'll very quickly go back to the very reason why that rule was brought in the first place: too much inconsistency. I'm disappointed that they've gone that way. The obscure one is, I don't know whether you guys are across this one, but the marks and free kicks in defence. When a defender marks or receives a free kick within 9 metres of their own goal, the man on the mark will be brought in line with the top of the goal square.
Oh,
why?
Is that just like the opposite of having a set shot from the goal square? Like, you just straighten them up.
I think it's to open the ground up.
Yeah, I think it's to try to get it out of the area, but you've still got a zone going on.
Isn't that going to slow play down while you bring the bloke back on the mark in front of the goal square? I don't like that at all. You would
think, but the AFL don't understand how umpiring actually works and how the speed of the game actually works. It's kind of interesting because Joel Selwood was talking about they've been training to the new rules at Geelong, their training, and he actually said one of his comments was, there's going to be more one-on-one contests, and people will like that, but there's also a little bit more stoppages.
Yeah, the game will definitely slow down.
Which is not what the AFL wanted.
Yeah. Well, I think they did it in some respects, Nick, because I think they see the speed of the game as having a correlation with impact injuries. But as a spectacle, they want free-flowing. Overall, I didn't think any of these rule changes were really, really required.
Didn't they talk about they were also going to rejig how they're interpreting holding the balls?
Well, they're
and the
always
illegal
rejigging
disposal.
that. Well,
yeah, just umpire fucking correctly.
Well, I think we've had this discussion last year too, Nick. That
Yep.
if they actually interpreted oh shit, donkey, I remember that.
That's where I was shutting up before.
If they actually officiated the rules as they are written, then they wouldn't need to make all these fucking changes. The fact is that most of these changes are because of the way that they apply them. Avoiding the word interpret.
You need the thesaurus out.
So, it's actually going to be a very different game. Being able to play on while a 50-metre penalty is being measured out is an interesting concept because essentially it's free ball because the player isn't allowed to be infringed while they're advancing up to the 50-metre, but they can very quickly, whilst that's happening, play on. And then you've got, of course, coupled in with that, how are they going to tie that in with the east-west situation, the 5 metres either side or 10 metres either side or whatever it is? I can see that going haywire pretty quick smart. The prior opportunity in the ruck contest, I don't know whether that was necessarily required to you.
Not really.
Yeah. I thought the ruck contest has been good.
I actually like the fact that they couldn't grab it out of the air.
I hate the nomination thing. I think that's stupid. To me, that's saying that the umpires on the field, you can't tell who's going to be the ruckman.
Well, I don't have a problem with the way things were in ball up situations. I didn't mind third man up at all in ball up situations, and I feel like the only time there was an injury possibility with regards to third man up was at boundary throw-ins, and it's very easy. You just two blokes go for the ball. If two players from one team go for the ball, then they get penalised. I don't think you need to bloody nominate, but what do I know?
Yeah, that's true.
Fuck off. Anyway, I guess we'll see how they play out, and like you, I just wish they'd stop messing with the freaking game. I kind of liked it a few years ago.
Yeah, let it go. Let it actually evolve.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to tinker.
I mean, one thing's for certain, Steve Hocking's obviously been given a bit of a mandate, and most of these are the product of his brain, I would imagine. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, anything else to talk about before we wrap up for the evening?
Donkey's favourite thing.
Yeah.
Are we doing that in the pre-season? Oh, yeah, AFL fucking hex. Jesus Christ. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's been
exciting times.
I must apologise. I'm used to summer months and drinking and all the rest of it, and my mouth has been very foul this evening, so I do apologise to those people that are listening. I'll try and tidy it up.
No, people that swear more are highly intelligent, according to psychologists. Fucking know.
I must be. Yes. I'm just going to leave that one.
This whole podcast debunks that theory.
Hey,
because
I've got a section that's a cock-wobbling numbnuts.
Exactly, and look how... Oh, no. Anyway.
Don't go there.
AFLX. Go for it, Donk. This is your baby.
Well, look, it's very exciting times. 50% of all captains in the AFLX have either played for the Adelaide Crows or currently play for the Adelaide Crows, which is obviously a homage from the AFL to the club over their inaugural AFLX championship. Look, it's going to be very exciting. Next Wednesday, there'll be a nationally broadcast live draft of all the captains standing up on the side of the school shed and picking the players that they're going to play with. We've heard that every club's been asked to put forward 4 players to play in their squads, it'll be interesting to see. And if some of the top quality talent is on show, and what that looks like. Last year, we had superstars we hadn't heard of before, like Tom Doty come through the ranks of AFLX, and and show their mettle what they're going to give us through the season. So it'll be interesting to see where we go there. I'm obviously backing in the Deadlies with Eddie Betts, and they'll be taking on Patrick Dangerfield's Lightning Bolts and Jack Rewalt's Green Donkeys. Maybe it's the Green Donkeys or something.
Yeah, they're green something.
And looks like Nathan Fife is going for the Ford Fairlanes by the look of it. They've all seemed to have picked up the badge off a car for the front of it. So look, it's going to be very exciting times. People have been really excited that this concept's been brought back, and now that we're putting clubs' most high valued assets into a kamikaze field to injure themselves for an entire season, it's really going to raise the stakes. Will Vice Captain Patrick Cripps go out and deliver us pick one before the first bounce of the season? Who knows?
That'd be nice. I'm just a little concerned about this, the schoolyard picking, because you put 4 names forward. Now, what happens if one of those names isn't picked? I mean, how you're going to feel like that kid in the schoolyard who never got picked?
I don't know what that kid feels like, Mickey, so tell us.
The only difference is that kid in the schoolyard isn't on $1 million contract. He doesn't probably mind if he sits out. He'll just go back to pre-season training. Can anyone tell me what the point of this is?
Pushing Marvel Stadium, increased crowds in Victoria. That's all I can kind of think, because it's only being played at Marvel. They're not playing it around the ground. I'm sorry, if you're AFL, why is it only being played in Victoria? Why? And didn't they want it on a square ground? But Marvel Stadium's not square; it's round.
I don't know. It's a bit of a comedy, really. I can't understand. And to be perfectly honest with you, I can't understand why the Crows would release a 30-however-old player who's obviously coming towards the end of his career and yet still is integral to our premiership chances. What? And notwithstanding all the other blokes that are involved in this, but why would you put one of those blokes up?
Well, maybe Eddie wanted to play. Maybe that's
not the point, though.
Repping is Indigenous.
But it's not the point whether he wants to play.
Yeah.
This is a professional football competition. What if Eddie does a hip or an ankle and his season's basically over?
And it's an absolute travesty. And look, I don't think you're wrong here, Vane. I don't think you're wrong here at all. But it is what it is, and we've got it in front of us, and there's clearly some Gil McLaughlin master play in the background here where he has to tinker with everything and come up with a brand new spanking idea. And,
did he talk to Scott Morrison for marketing ideas? Because that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I look, even the great ScoMo, I don't think is this harebrained.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is, Donkey, you're going to have to watch it, because there's no way in a pink fit, and I'm saying pink fit in a punny way because they're using pink balls, for Christ's sakes. But there's no way in a pink fit that I'm going to be watching AFLX. I have absolutely no interest in AFLX whatsoever. I think it's ridiculous.
Well, I will wear that cross. And look, I'm looking forward to seeing a few Zupa Dupas, a couple of Zipper Zappers, and a few Nibbly Nobblers, and getting on with AFLX 2019.
Yeah, all right. Well, thankfully it's only one night. And that's it for our massive AFLX wrap-up. We're obviously very keen about it. All right, look, that's probably it for tonight too. We've managed to stretch it out to an hour. I don't know how the hell we did that. It was all that bullshit we were talking about. Just a couple of things before we go. Obviously, it's been a bit free and easy tonight, but we will settle back into our normal routine. There'll be a couple of new things going on during the season. We're very, very fortunate to have a leading AFL scribe joining us in a couple of weeks to preview the season, so that's something to look out for. Lots of other interviews in the works too. If you want to support us, if you like what you hear from us, go to our Patreon page or go to our website and click on the Patreon button and select a tier. All the different things involved in each of those tiers will be up and running by round 1, so don't worry if they're not there yet, they will be. Macca's going to be back next week. Pete will be back next week. It's all happening. Anything to add?
No, it's lovely to be back. We've missed everybody.
It is nice to be back. The strikers suck. The test team suck. The tennis sucks. So bring on the footy. And I reckon that'll just about do us for tonight, guys. Thanks to everyone for joining us on the chat. Thanks to everyone who joined us on Facebook. And we will be back next Tuesday with the roundup of the first round of the AFLW and everything else that's going on. See you later, guys.
Yeah,
Night all.